Before I reveal these secrets, let me warn you, once you hear them, you'll never look at women the same way again. Most men spend their lives confused, rejected, or ignored because they don't understand the psychology working silently behind female attraction. But today, you're about to step into the 3% of men who see what others can see. These truths are raw, real, and dangerously eye-opening. Ready to hear what she'll never tell you? No one. Women respond more to emotional vibes than physical looks. Most men grow up believing that a woman's attraction triggers primarily through physical features, muscles, height, jawline, or how expensive a man looks on the outside. But the truth working underneath female psychology is far more complex, far more emotional, and far more instinct-driven. A woman's attraction system is designed to pick up vibes, not visuals. She processes tone before words, confidence before appearance, and energy before logic. Her subconscious mind reads a man's emotional frequency like a radar scanning for signals of strength, stability, and intensity. This is why a man who isn't the most handsome can still dominate a room simply by the power of his presence, and a man who looks perfect on the outside can still get ignored if his energy feels weak, needy, or uncertain. Women have finely tuned emotional sensors. They detect insecurity from small pauses, shaky voice notes, over-explaining, or trying too hard to impress. They detect confidence not from loudness but from how calmly, slowly, and deliberately a man carries himself. They feel leadership through subtle cues, steady eye contact, relaxed posture, measured responses, and emotional grounding. Her attraction is built on what she feels, not just what she sees. This is why women often say, "I don't know why I am attracted to him," because the attraction came from energy she picked up subconsciously rather than from superficial traits she could logically explain. A woman's emotional system is wired to evaluate a man's internal world, not his external decoration. She reads how he reacts to pressure, whether he loses control when something goes wrong, whether he becomes needy the moment she pulls away, or whether he can stay unshaken and composed. If his emotional vibe gives her security, she opens up. If his emotional vibe gives her unpredictability with confidence, she becomes curious. If his emotional vibe gives her masculine steadiness, she begins to feel safe. And if his emotional vibe gives her intensity without chaos, she becomes deeply attracted. Women also respond to the difference between authenticity and performance. When a man is hiding behind an act, she senses the glitch in his emotional energy. She can feel when he is pretending to be confident, pretending to be strong, pretending to be indifferent. But when a man is truly grounded in himself, comfortable in silence, unbothered by rejection, and emotionally disciplined, she senses a vibe of real masculine presence. That presence strikes deeper than looks ever could. Even conversation between men and women is powered by emotional vibes. A man who talks too fast shows nervousness. A man who talks too much shows insecurity. A man who cannot hold silence shows discomfort. But a man who speaks slowly, selectively, and intentionally comes across as dominant. His voice becomes a form of emotional influence. His pauses create tension. His calmness creates authority. Vibe pulls her into his atmosphere. Women also connect with the emotional resonance behind a man's intentions. If he approaches from desperation, she feels pressure. If he approaches from entitlement, she feels resistance. If he approaches from calm confidence, she feels interest. If he approaches from playful boldness, she feels excitement. A woman's psychology reacts to the feeling she gets from a man, long before she evaluates whether she likes him or not. This is why some women say they are attracted to bad boys or mysterious men, even when those men are not conventionally good-looking. The truth is not that they like toxicity. The truth is that these men project strong, unapologetic, emotionally unbothered vibes. They radiate certainty. They move like men who don't seek approval. They carry themselves with a kind of relaxed intensity that stimulates a woman's emotional instincts. Their vibe creates an emotional spark that good looks alone cannot replace. This psychological secret is the reason why mastering your emotional vibe gives you more power and attraction than anything physical ever could. No. 2. Mystery triggers female desire faster than attention. Most men believe that the more attention they give a woman, the more she will notice them, like them, or feel drawn toward them. But female psychology doesn't react to constant availability the way men expect. In reality, mystery activates a deeper, more instinctive part of a woman's attraction system, the part that responds to curiosity, unpredictability, and emotional suspense. When a man becomes too predictable, too easy to read, and too accessible, her mind classifies him as safe, but uninspiring. When a man holds a certain level of mystery, he becomes intriguing, stimulating, and mentally irresistible. Mystery is not about playing games or pretending to be someone else. It is the art of leaving emotional space for her mind to wander. When she cannot fully decode you, she invests more mental energy trying to understand you. That investment becomes the foundation of desire. A woman is far more attracted to a man whose next move she cannot fully predict. She wants to know more because she doesn't already know everything. Her curiosity becomes a bridge to her emotional engagement. Attention is predictable. Mystery is thrilling. Attention gives her comfort. Mystery gives her excitement. Too much attention kills the suspense that fuels feminine desire. When a man is always available, always texting back instantly, always ready to respond, she loses that subtle tension that keeps attraction alive. Her emotional system begins to relax instead of ignite. Her mind stops asking questions. Her imagination stops working. Mystery, on the other hand, activates her imagination in a way that makes her think about a man even when he is not physically present. A mysterious man doesn't explain everything about himself. He reveals slowly, selectively, naturally. It's not overshare. He knows that silence can be more seductive than words. He understands that holding back information creates a sense of depth. Women are drawn to layers because layers suggest complexity, and complexity invites exploration. The more there is to discover, the stronger the pull becomes. The man who reveals everything too soon removes all intrigue and leaves nothing to unfold. Mystery also comes from emotional discipline. A man who doesn't react instantly, who doesn't rush to answer, who takes his time responding, communicates that he is not governed by neediness. His calm pause feels like confidence. Selective attention makes his presence more valuable. When he doesn't make himself constantly available, she begins to wonder what he is doing, who he is with, and why he isn't chasing her like other men. These questions create an emotional spark that attention alone never can. There is a difference between being distant and being mysterious. Distance pushes her away. Mystery pulls her closer. The mysterious man is present when he chooses to be, but he isn't predictable. He shows genuine interest, but not constant availability. He gives warmth, but not full access. Creates a rhythm of presence and absence that keeps her emotionally engaged. She begins to check her phone. She replays conversations. She pays attention to details she normally wouldn't. Her mind starts building stories around him, and that psychological involvement becomes a source of attraction. Mystery also amplifies masculine dominance. It signals that the man has a life beyond her, that he has priorities, passions, and goals that don't revolve around winning her approval. A man who is fully absorbed in his purpose naturally becomes harder to read. He doesn't announce every move, doesn't need validation. His unpredictability is not deliberate, but a natural consequence of having a full life. This kind of mystery feels authentic and attractive because it comes from abundance, not manipulation. When a woman feels that a man has secrets she wants to uncover, she invests emotionally. When she invests emotionally, attraction grows. The man who gives everything to easily removes the chase, and without the chase, feminine energy loses its spark. A woman desires not what she fully understands, but what she is still trying to understand. A man wrapped in mystery stimulates her curiosity, and curiosity is one of the strongest forms of psychological desire. No 3. A woman mirrors the emotional state you project. A woman's emotional system is highly responsive. It's not just to what a man says, but to what he feels beneath the surface. She mirrors the emotional tone he brings into an interaction, even when she isn't consciously aware of it. This psychological mechanism is built into female intuition, allowing her to read the unspoken, sense the hidden, and respond to the emotional atmosphere he creates. Her behavior, her warmth, her distance, her comfort level, and even her attraction often reflect the emotional signals he sends out, directly or subtly. When a man approaches with calm confidence, she feels safe. When he approaches with insecurity, she senses instability. Her reactions are shaped more by his emotional frequency than by his words. A man who is anxious, overly excited, or trying too hard creates an emotional pressure that makes her withdraw. She feels the tension in his voice, the rush in his speech, the need in his eyes. Her body instinctively mirrors his nervousness by shrinking, avoiding, or becoming distant. She cannot relax because he isn't relaxed. But when a man carries a composed, grounded presence, she mirrors that calmness. Her shoulders relax, her voice softens, her expressions warm up. She follows the emotional leadership he provides, consciously or unconsciously. A woman's emotional mirroring is especially strong in moments of uncertainty. If a man becomes reactive when she pulls back, panicking, texting more, seeking reassurance, she mirrors his anxiety by pulling back even further. His emotional instability triggers her emotional protection. When he remains steady, unbothered, and secure, despite her withdrawal, she mirrors that steadiness. She becomes more comfortable returning because his emotional control signals strength, not weakness. His calm response creates a safe psychological space for her feminine energy to flow back. Even small reactions impact her mirroring process. A man who smiles without rushing gives her a sense of warmth. A man who pauses before responding creates a sense of presence. A man who breathes deeply before speaking emits control. She absorbs these cues and reflects them in her tone, posture, and engagement. Conversely, emotional chaos on his side, anger, overexcitement, jealousy, desperation produces distance on hers. She matches the energy she receives because her emotional system prioritizes safety, stability, and strength. A woman also mirrors masculine focus. When a man is mission-driven, disciplined, and not easily distracted by her moods or tests, she becomes more feminine, more receptive, and more emotionally open. She mirrors his focus by trusting his direction. But when a man loses himself in her reactions, changes his behavior based on her moods, or becomes emotionally dependent, she mirrors his uncertainty by becoming guarded. Her softness emerges when his strength is present. Her curiosity rises when his steadiness holds. This mirroring extends into communication as well. The tone he sets determines the emotional rhythm of the conversation. If he speaks in a low, calm, slow manner, she often responds with a softer tone. If he becomes intense or rushed, she becomes defensive or detached. If he maintains playful confidence, she mirrors that with flirtatious energy. His emotional state becomes the template for her emotional behavior. Women mirror because they are biologically tuned to detect a man's internal world. It helps them judge if he is a protector or a threat, stable or unpredictable, strong or fragile. The subconscious evaluates his emotional leadership continuously. When he controls his emotions, she feels drawn. When he loses that control, she loses her attraction. A woman follows a man's emotional lead when he shows discipline, certainty, and depth. She responds to the emotional environment he creates because that environment shapes how safe, excited, or connected she feels in his presence. Women test to measure psychological strength. Not to annoy you, many men misunderstand a woman's tests as drama, mood swings, or unnecessary complications. But these tests come from deeply rooted psychological mechanisms designed to evaluate a man's emotional stability and inner strength. A woman doesn't test because she wants conflict. She tests because she wants clarity. She needs to know whether the man in front of her is confident, grounded, and capable of handling real pressure, or if he collapses the moment things stop going his way. Her tests are not attacks, they are signals searching for leadership, direction, and masculine composure. These tests can appear in simple forms: delayed replies, sudden coldness, small disagreements, unexpected questions, or moments where she becomes emotionally distant. When a man reacts with panic, over-explaining, anger, or clinginess, she reads it instantly. His emotional reaction tells her everything she needs to know. Man who loses his balance because of a minor shift in her behavior appears emotionally fragile. She mirrors his instability by stepping back, sensing that he cannot hold emotional space for her. Her test wasn't meant to harm, it was meant to reveal. A woman's tests intensify when she feels interest. The more she cares, the more she needs certainty. She wants to know if the man she is allowing into her emotional world can remain steady even when she pulls away or challenges him. Her subconscious asks, will he stay masculine when things become uncertain? Will he remain composed when faced with confusion? Will he show leadership when emotions rise? These tests are psychological tools for self-protection, not manipulation. Through them, she evaluates whether he is worth investing in. Men who understand these tests don't respond with frustration. They remain calm, patient, and composed. They don't chase her validation or react impulsively. They allow the moment to unfold while staying grounded in their own emotional center. This calmness sends a powerful message. He is not controlled by her moods, and he does not crumble under pressure. His stability reassures her feminine instincts. Her guard drops, her trust increases, and her attraction grows. His emotional strength turns the test into a moment of connection rather than conflict. Tests also appear in forms of curiosity. She may ask questions to see how honest he is. She might challenge his opinions to see if he stands firm or becomes defensive. She may disagree on purpose to observe whether he argues aggressively or handles differences with maturity. Each scenario reveals how he navigates emotional intensity. Her goal is not to prove him wrong, but to understand who he becomes under stress. A woman also tests boundaries. If she senses that a man is desperate for approval, she instinctively pushes a bit to see how far she can go. A man who allows disrespect or avoids setting boundaries loses her respect. But a man who stays calm, asserts himself clearly, and maintains standards without anger or fear earns her admiration. His boundary becomes a sign of self-respect, and self-respect is a powerful form of masculine attractiveness. She feels safer around a man who has limits because it shows he can protect himself, and, by extension, protect her. Even silence can be a test. When she pulls back, she wants to see if he chases her instantly or stays composed and patient. If he panics, she sees insecurity. If he becomes cold or vengeful, she sees immaturity. But if he remains stable and unbothered, she sees strength. His calm reaction tells her that his world doesn't collapse when she steps back. This emotional independence is exactly what she subconsciously seeks in a partner. A woman's tests are a reflection of her instinct to choose the strongest emotional presence available to her. When she tests, she is not trying to break him, but trying to understand him. A man's response to these tests defines the level of attraction, trust, and respect she feels toward him. Women test to measure whether a man's confidence is real, whether his calmness is authentic, and whether his masculinity is stable enough to handle the dynamic dance of emotions that relationships inevitably bring. The stronger he remains, the more she feels drawn to him. No 5. A woman falls hardest for the man she can't completely predict. Predictability creates comfort. But it rarely creates desire. In female psychology, desire is born from a blend of uncertainty, curiosity, and emotional tension. Women become deeply attracted to men who possess layers, complexity, and a touch of unpredictability, not chaos, but a kind of controlled mystery that keeps her mentally engaged. And she cannot fully predict what a man will say, how he will react, or what his next move will be. Her mind remains active. And an active female mind is the birthplace of emotional fascination. Predictability feels safe, but unpredictability feels exciting. A woman falls hardest for the man who gives her both security in his presence, but mystery in his personality. When a man is completely predictable, she can map out his reactions like a script. She knows exactly when he will text, what he will say, how he will behave, and what he expects from her. This removes the sense of discovery, thrill, and emotional spark that fuels attraction. Her imagination stops working, and once a woman stops imagining you, she stops craving you. But when a man blends consistency with subtle unpredictability, keeping his standards firm but his behavior layered, he becomes a psychological puzzle she wants to solve. That puzzle becomes addictive because her mind keeps returning to him, seeking meaning, patterns, and depth. Unpredictability does not mean mood swings or mixed signals. It means a man who refuses to be emotionally transparent all the time, who reveals himself selectively and naturally, never fully opening his entire world at once. He shares experiences but doesn't narrate every detail, gives glimpses but not the whole story. He keeps his emotional world calm, yet unreadable at times. This subtle unpredictability creates an aura of intrigue. She begins to watch his eyes longer, study his body language more closely, and replay their conversations in her mind because she is trying to decode him. Her attraction deepens through the act of decoding. A predictable man reacts instinctively. Slightly unpredictable man responds thoughtfully. She cannot anticipate how he will handle pressure, silence, or emotional tension, and this makes him stand out. When he doesn't rush to reply, she wonders what he's thinking. When he stays calm during conflict, she feels impressed. When he doesn't get jealous easily, she feels challenged. When he doesn't try to prove himself, she feels drawn to the confidence behind it. This unpredictability signals psychological strength, making her more invested. Women are attracted to the unexpected confidence move a man walking away instead of arguing, staying silent instead of over-explaining, choosing himself instead of chasing validation. These actions disrupt her expectations and create emotional spikes. Emotional spikes become emotional memories, and emotional memories fuel attachment. Predictable men create no spikes. Mysterious men create them without trying, simply by being in control of themselves. A woman's attraction grows when she feels like she is discovering a man rather than receiving him on a platter. When he has layers of ambition, discipline, humor, strength, and calm intensity, she wants to explore him further. Every interaction feels slightly new. Every conversation feels slightly deeper. Every silence feels slightly meaningful. She falls harder because she senses that there's more beneath the surface, more to learn, more to feel, more to unlock. This emotional unfolding becomes a journey. This kind of unpredictability also ties into a man's purpose. When a man is driven, busy, focused, and not constantly available, he naturally becomes harder to read. Life has depth, his mind has direction, and his time has value. She cannot predict him completely because he is not orbiting around her. He moves according to his mission, not her moods. This independence makes him magnetic because it signals that he is a man with momentum, not a man waiting for her cues. A woman falls hardest when a man is consistent enough to trust, but unpredictable enough to excite. He gives her stability, but never becomes dull. He gives her comfort, but never becomes obvious. He gives her attention, but never becomes obsessive. In that balance, her attraction intensifies. Her emotional instincts lean toward him because her mind stays curious. She falls deeper because she can feel him, but she can never fully predict him. 6. Women submit emotionally to the man who controls his reactions. A woman's deepest attraction is not triggered by looks, money, or smooth words. It is triggered by a man's emotional discipline, the ability to stay calm, steady, and in control regardless of what is happening around him. Women observe reactions far more than actions. They watch how a man responds to pressure, silence, uncertainty, challenges, and emotional tension. A man who can control his reactions signals maturity, inner strength, and psychological dominance, which makes a woman feel safe, grounded, and naturally more feminine around him. Emotional submission begins when she senses that his emotions never overpower him. Emotional self-control doesn't mean suppressing feelings. It means choosing responses instead of being driven by impulses. When a woman becomes distant, moody, or unsure, most men react instantly, panicking, overthinking, or chasing. These reactions expose emotional instability, and a woman loses respect the moment she senses a man has no command over his internal world. But when a man stays calm, relaxed, and composed, she feels his strength. His stillness becomes more powerful than any emotional display. His controlled reaction shows that he cannot be manipulated by stress or triggered by inconsistency. This makes her trust his emotional leadership. Women naturally test emotional control. They may shift their tone, change their interest level, or express frustration to see if he remains solid. If he becomes defensive or argumentative, she feels unsafe. If he becomes needy or overly apologetic, she feels he lacks backbone. But if he stays steady, listening without absorbing her chaos, understanding without collapsing, responding without overreacting, she begins to emotionally soften. His calm presence regulates her emotional waves. She feels pulled into his frame rather than pushing him away from hers. A controlled reaction also communicates confidence. When a woman cannot predict whether he will stay centered or crumble, she feels uncertain. But when she sees that nothing shakes him, not her moods, not delays, not small conflicts, she senses real masculine power. This stability allows her to relax into her femininity because she no longer feels responsible for managing the emotional environment. She feels like she can lean into him rather than lead the entire emotional dynamic herself. His self-control becomes the anchor that steadies her instincts. A man who controls his reactions also becomes more mysterious and attractive. When he doesn't respond instantly, she wonders what he's thinking. When he takes time before answering, she senses depth. When he doesn't explain himself excessively, she sees confidence. When he doesn't get jealous easily, she feels secure and intrigued. Every one of these behaviors creates psychological tension, the kind that activates female desire. His self-control shapes her perception of him as disciplined, focused, and emotionally powerful. This is the kind of man a woman respects and gravitates toward. Even in conflict, emotional control becomes the deciding factor. Most men explode, shut down, or try to win the argument. But the man who maintains a calm voice, controlled breathing, and measured words instantly shifts the power dynamic. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't rush to prove himself. He steps back, observes, and responds only when necessary. His controlled presence disarms her defenses. She stops fighting and starts feeling. His calmness dissolves emotional chaos, making her naturally more receptive, connected, and affectionate. A woman cannot emotionally submit to a man who loses control. She can only submit to a man who is control. Controlled reaction also creates emotional polarity. Feminine energy is expressive, reactive, and emotionally rich. Masculine energy is grounded, stable, and deliberate. When a man remains unmoved by turbulence, she instinctively shifts into her feminine side, expressing softness, warmth, and vulnerability. She opens up emotionally because she feels protected, not judged. She becomes more invested because she knows he won't fall apart when she reveals her deepest fears or insecurities. His emotional strength becomes her emotional comfort. When a woman senses a man has mastered his reactions, she begins to trust him, respect him, desire him, and submit emotionally without force. She sees him as a leader, a protector, and a stable presence. His emotional discipline becomes the silent language that communicates power. She falls not for his words, but for the man who remains unshaken, unpressured, and unrushed. She submits emotionally to the man who controls himself, because self-control is the highest form of masculine strength. In the end, these psychological secrets reveal one truth. Women respond not to looks or charm, but to a man's emotional power, mystery, discipline, and depth. When you master your vibe, your reactions, and your inner strength, you stop chasing and start attracting. You become the rare man women feel drawn to without knowing why. Stay grounded, stay unpredictable, and stay in control.